really good looking guy, tall, handsome, whatever, but broke, not ambitious, whatever. Well, I guess he's got to be kind of ambitious if he's athletic, or kind of like dad bod guy, but rich, maybe a bit of status. Go ahead.
I would go for the more attractive one if it's just the money that's different between them besides the other factor, just because I plan on supporting myself, so.
Support, okay.
Speak into the mic.
I don't know. I would probably go for the latter, yeah.
I mean, if the tall athletic guy was broke because he was unambitious, then that's like a horrible turnoff. And I just like, I really value like ambition in someone. And so if that was the case, then I wouldn't.
Let's say he's really hot though.
Okay, but how hot? Like
so
10
hot.
out of 10. But
Yeah.
Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
I still don't think that matters if he's super hot, but he can't
I'm
he
calling
can't
cap.
support himself.
I'm calling cap.
You really think so? Really?
Just
I'm not envisioning
some super ultra stud Chad. He's
to date, to have a life with.
To date, like some super ultra stud
No.
Chad, like really jacked,
No.
very handsome. No?
No.
But to have sex one time.
Let's say he's
Well, yeah, but like it's different.
There it is. There it is.
It's different. They're two very different things. Dating and sex, very different. So
We're just going to keep it moving. Go ahead.
No, that's true. Dating and sex is very different. Like, obviously, like, you know, first, if I'm going to have sex with someone, like, I'm going to choose the more physically attractive one. But, like, it kind of goes back to, like, ambition. Like, I think for me, like, ambition is something that's a very, like, a big green flag. Like, and if someone is, like, you know, works really hard and works on themselves, but also, you know, I could see myself having a future with them, then that's the person I'm going to want to be with, you know? It's kind of like going to like the university. Like I want to end up with someone who actually goes and has like a future versus someone who may not have a future.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the more attractive one. I think attraction's huge. And just because you're broke, I mean, I can help you get your credit score up, you know? Like if we're in a relationship, like I know what I bring to the table, and just because...
What do you bring to the table?
Oh, that's a good question.
You just said you know what you bring to the table. So what do you bring to the table?
I'm very ambitious, and I know that I will be successful in the future.
Is that it?
Oh,
Anything
well, there's
else?
more too. I'm also, I mean, I love to like cook for other people.
Sure.
I'm very caring. I love to do stuff together. I love to spend time.
So the first two things you said though is that you're very ambitious and that you know you're going to be successful.
And I can help them. I mean, if we love each other, I'm totally willing to help them with that.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think that that is something that men care about?
Yes.
No offense, by the way, but do you think that men care about a woman's ambition or success?
I would hope so.
Let's open it up to the panel really quick. Do you think men care about a woman's, what she brings financially to a relationship?
I really think that's a question that kind of depends on the person. Not to say depends again, but I think that everybody has a different opinion about money, and everybody comes from different backgrounds. So I feel like you can't generalize that.
I feel like we should speak in generalities, though.
Yeah, we're speaking generalities here. Let's generalize.
Was the question you do?
Go ahead.
Generally speaking, do you think dudes care about ambition and financial success in a woman? Do you think they find that attractive?
Yes.
Okay. You think it's like a high priority for men?
Probably less successful than like them, but like still successful.
Okay.
I think that, I mean, okay, we're generalizing, so I'm not going to say depends. I mean, it seems as if in today's society, things are kind of shifting. It's kind of going from like, oh, the man provides all the money to, I feel like it's kind of getting a little bit closer to being equal. I mean, I would hope. So I would say yes, they do value that, because obviously you want an ambitious woman. You want a woman that can stand her own ground, that can make her own money. And I don't know, I just think it's like society has really been accepting that lately, and I'm really happy. I'm happy about that. It makes me happy.
I have two takes on this. One, I think boys versus men kind of is different. Like boys, I don't think, definitely not.
Yep.
Men, I definitely think, I mean, in my opinion, I think that they value that more. And also, I think it also is like how you grew up. I actually just talked to a recent close friend of mine, and I was very surprised, but he said that he grew up with parents who were very much like, you know, his mom went and like grew up in the household, she took care of the kids, like kind of like the stereotypical, versus his dad went and like, you know, worked. And he said he wouldn't mind having, you know, a wife who kind of like stayed at the household, and if there was a choice between him working and her working, he would prefer him to work and her to stay in the household. Versus some of my other friends, you know, go and say that they're much more like, you know, it's getting more toward like, you know, more of an equalized relationship. But generally, I would go back to my first thing, which is like men would value that.
Okay. Versus boys.
Versus boys.
Yep, that's a good distinction to make.
Mm-hmm. I think you could actually argue that a boy would care more about a woman's finances. Because as a man, most, like a man, let's say a guy who's an attorney, for example, he'd probably date a barista, a woman who worked at Chick-fil-A, if she was attractive. But I'd say most women who are attorneys would not do the reverse. A female professional, a female attorney, or say a doctor, or whatever it is, she's probably going to be looking for a guy that is on her level or higher. Like,
yeah, and I think definitely maybe from like this panel, like we're all kind of like 19, 20. I think our perception is definitely like, you know, we are at college right now, and I've experienced like, you know, boys, and then I've also dated a couple like I would consider like men who like go and value things a little bit differently. So I think, you know, my perception is, you know, limited, but I do kind of agree with that. And then maybe also like, I mean, you guys, please like let me know, because I'm actually genuinely interested, is that do you find maybe a really successful woman very like intimidating almost? And then would this kind of like sidetrack, or like would you guys be deterred from it? Or
Tanner, you go ahead first.
Okay, so, you know, for me, I'm trying to scale myself to be the best man that I can be, where, I mean, now I have a good job. I mean, I'm not like rich by any means, but I do pretty good for myself, totally support myself. I have my side business now. It's like something of my own that I'm trying to scale that, you know, should be making like more money. And that's something that, you know, I want to do for me, but also to provide like for a woman. Big thing for me is like, I want a woman who, you know, say if she has a great job, like makes money, like that's fine. But I'm looking for a woman that is like very feminine, like, and for me, like has to love babies, like, and has to want to have a family. Like, that's huge for me. Like, that's what I'm looking for. If she likes to work and does all that, like, hey, good, great, but she like has to be feminine and has to love babies and would have to be willing to spend at least like the first 5 years of my kid's life, you know, like with them, raising them and whatnot. So if they want to like work and want to be successful in that way, that's fine, but they also have to be okay with the family dynamic that I would want in the future, and like to let me support them in that way.
so you're a little turned off by like independent women?
I mean, I wouldn't say turned off, but like say if there was like an independent woman that was kind of doing her thing, but then she was like, hey, I do want children and I do want to raise them and whatnot, then like that's what I'm looking for. If it's an independent woman that's just like, oh no, like if I were to have a kid or whatever, but then immediately just like, put them in a, like public school and just have them like be raised by whoever and have nothing to do with them that way, that's not something that I would want. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, the distinction here is that, like, when I get married, I want a wife who is submissive and traditionally feminine, and I want to be in, like, a leadership role and kind of traditionally masculine. And one of the things that I think happens a lot in the world is when women are making a lot of money, they kind of end up, like, wearing the pants in the relationship. And that can really kind of fuck up relationship dynamics. Like, when I was growing up, my mom, she wasn't making more money than my dad, but there was a lot of times where she was kind of wearing the pants in the relationship, and it created a lot of friction in our household. And like if I found a woman who was making more money than I was, like it might be a little bit intimidating, but like if there's like a big difference, like let's say, I don't know, she's making like $400,000 a year more than I am. Like that'd probably be a bit intimidating. But if I met her and we had a good dynamic and like the two of us could kind of collaborate on like how we wanted to build a life together, and she like trusted my leadership, that's like the key, right? Like if a woman trusts my leadership as a man, like that's like a green light for me.
Mm-hmm.
So to just make it clear, what you're saying is that an independent woman isn't a total turn off, but you still have to be the leader. The man still has to be the leader in the relationship, or like, you know, the woman has to be submissive.
For me, like that's what I want. Like I personally find like the whole like boss bitch, like I'm a strong independent woman who don't need no man. Like I find that to be a total turnoff. I don't like that at all.
I think coming like, you know, Chase and I were both Christians, and kind of we look at that way, is that like, you know, women will kind of, speaking from like a marriage standpoint, you know, women will kind of submit to their husbands, and they might not necessarily agree with everything that they're saying, but they will still, and if they do agree or not agree with it, they will let them know, vocalize like why they don't agree with it, why they think it's not a good idea, but at the end of the day will still submit to their husband, and then still trust them enough to be like, okay, if this is a mistake or whatever, then you will find us way out of it, and trust enough